How do I choose a cooling solution for my computer? Types of cooling. A computer, like any electrical device, gives off heat during its operation, which must be dissipated. To prevent overheating, the BIOS constantly monitors the temperature of key components. When the temperature of one of the components reaches a critical value, an emergency temporary shutdown of the unit's power supply occurs, known as a reset. This is the most common sign that our computer is not properly cooled. Types of computer cooling. Active cooling types. Cooling kits for computer components can be divided into three main categories. The most popular method is active air cooling, or fans of all kinds. In the case of CPU and graphics card cooling, the fan is supported by a metal heatsink, which is responsible for dissipating the heat of the component over a larger area. This method is cheap and provides decent performance. Unfortunately, it also has disadvantages, which include noisy operation and the settlement of a large amount of dust, which forces periodic cleaning. Pros. Low cost of fans. Good efficiency. Disadvantages. Noisy operation of fans. Dust deposits on the impeller blades and the heat sink. An alternative way to actively cool a computer is to use liquid. This is a much more complicated solution and is therefore much more expensive and takes up much more space in the case. However, this solution has a much higher efficiency and a quieter mode of operation. Pros. High performance. Quieter system operation, all depends on the fans at the cooler. Disadvantages. High price of the kit. Large size requiring a suitable case. Risk of flooding. Passive cooling types. The opposite of the previous solution is passive cooling, which consists of fixed components only. These include heat sinks and heat pipes. This cooling is characterized by the absence of moving parts. The movement of air, in this case, is not forced and consists only in the phenomenon of rising warm air masses. The main advantages of this solution include completely silent operation of the cooling system and moderate accumulation of dust, which can be easily wiped off, as the heatsink is not covered by a fan. The reason for the rare use of this solution is the low cooling capacity, which makes it possible to use this type of cooling only in low-performance units. Pros. Completely silent cooling operation. Disadvantages. Very low cooling capacity. The heat sinks are often large, which makes installation in small cases difficult. Semi-passive cooling types. The third variant is a variation of the above two solutions. It is very similar to active air cooling, except that it may have a more elaborate heatsink with heat pipes. The system is based on smooth switching between standard passive cooling and actively supported one. Such a system is most often found on graphics cards. Usually fans are activated after exceeding 60 degrees Celsius, i.e. during playing computer games. Such a solution ensures quiet operation during the normal use of a computer and a small increase in the price of the device. Pros. Quiet operation of the passive cooling system during low-demand work. High cooling efficiency. Minuses. Slightly increased price of the device. CPU cooling selection. The CPU and the graphics card are the two most heated components of a computer unit. The latter always has its own cooling unit, which can be swapped out by the user, but this is not common. The processor, on the other hand, always has its own cooling system. This may be the so-called box cooling, which is attached to the component by the manufacturer, or purchased separately. Buy a box or look for one on your own. It depends on the purpose of the computer and the user's preferences. For computers that will be used for surfing the internet, operating an office package or other small demanding things, a standard cooling box from the manufacturer will suffice. It is cheap and very easy to install. When it comes to the volume of work, opinions are divided here. Some believe that these systems are quiet and do not interfere with work, while others believe that they are far too loud. Each cooler has a list of sockets that it is compatible within its specifications. Large, elaborate cooling kits usually have a universal mount that can be fitted to most processors. Fan power connector. Power supply is required for the fan to rotate. The power is drawn from the motherboard via special connectors designed for this purpose. These have 4 or 3 pins and come in 1 or 2 pieces. They are located near the CPU socket and are abbreviated CPU_fan. Although the socket itself usually has 4 pins, the fan connector does not. Based on the number of wires coming out of the fan, several characteristics of the fan can be determined. 2 pins, a standard fan that always spins at a constant speed. The computer is not able to control it or even detect its presence. It can only be used to cool the case. 3 pins, fan with speed sensor. The computer this time is able to detect the component and also calculate its speed. However, it cannot still control its speed. The fan can be used to cool the CPU, but this will not be effective. 4 pins, a fan equipped with a speed controller. The computer can calculate its speed and also modify it smoothly. This is the best solution because it provides maximum performance and quiet operation at low temperatures. Incorrect connection of the CPU fan or connection of a version without a speed sensor will result in the computer shutting down immediately. This is a safety mechanism that prevents the computing unit from overheating. Number of fan blades and fan diameter. The performance and noise level of a cooling kit depends to a large extent on the blades of the fan pumping the air. The most important factor is the diameter of the fan. The larger the fan, the lower its speed can be. The second aspect is the number of blades the fan has. The more blades a fan has, the stronger the airflow it is able to generate. Manufacturers, in order to minimize the noise generated during fan operation, equip their blades with a number of additional elements. These are all kinds of perforations and ribs, which reduce vibrations caused by the airflow. Their effectiveness is best judged by the opinions given by buyers. Bearing. In order to rotate freely, the fan must be fitted with a bearing. There are 2 main types of these components. Ball bearing, this is made up of 2 rings with a special cage holding the metal balls. This is a very robust solution, but it generates vibrations and noise. Slide bearing, consists of a shank and an acetabulum. Friction is usually reduced by an oil film. This solution has a shorter service life and does not tolerate horizontal operation well. On the other hand, it generates less vibration and noise. Heatsink design, aluminium or copper. The performance of a heatsink depends on the type of metal from which it is made. The most popular material is aluminium, which can be recognized by its silver color. It does not have very good conductive properties, but it is cheap, so it is ideal for the fins of a heatsink. A much better material is copper. It has very good conductive properties, but its use is associated with a higher price. The base of the heatsink that connects it to the CPU and the heat pipes are made of copper. More expensive models may have the copper pipes covered with a layer of nickel-plated pipes. This gives them a silver, shiny color and also inhibits the oxidation of the copper. Included thermal conductive paste. In order to ensure an efficient heat transfer between the CPU casing and the heatsink, a special substance is needed to fill the gaps between these components. This substance is called thermal conductive paste. Many manufacturers of heatsinks include with their products a small tube or syringe with that paste, but it is better to make sure if it is really so. In case of Intel's box kits, the paste is immediately applied on heatsink, what means that you do not have to worry about it. Liquid cooling. An alternative to traditional air cooling is liquid cooling. It is available in 2 versions. In the form of ready-made kits and a set of parts for self-construction of the system. Prefabricated kits. This is a very popular way to install this type of cooling in your computer. It is easy to install and does not take up much space in the case. The kits consist of 2 components connected by a pair of flexible cables. The first of them is a water block attached to the CPU like a classic air cooling. The second component is a radiator with a set of fans. The whole works on the same principle as engine cooling in a car. Coolant circulates in the system, taking heat away from the surface of the processor. It then travels to the radiator, where it disperses heat to the surroundings thanks to a large, ribbed surface. The cooler itself can be mounted externally as well as internally. A summary of what has been said. That is, the most important facts about cooling computer components. The cheapest solution is a radiator with a fan. The most efficient is liquid cooling. Passive cooling with a heatsink is only suitable for low-performance units. When buying fans, the price of the device is important. Cheap models are usually of very poor quality and provide poor cooling with noisy operation. The larger the fan diameter, the better. Will be able to operate at a lower speed. Although the performance of box coolers from CPU manufacturers leaves a lot to be desired, they offer decent performance at a low price. The very easy installation is also a plus. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.